Hello and welcome to another episode of the Investor Financing Podcast. We have a great guest today. We're going to talk about real estate, both as an agent and investor. We're going to talk about Airbnb, which is like everybody loves Airbnb and short-term rentals. And a lot of my clients are buying all sorts of short-term rental properties. So it'd be interesting because I know you have a company called Harris Consulting Systems and you help people on their Airbnb business. So we'll dive into that. Please welcome Leann Harris. She's the CEO at Keller Williams Realty, Portland Central, and she's overseen over $1 billion of sales annually for the past many years, which is a lot of real estate deals. So congratulations on that, first of all.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Beau.
Yeah, so you've been in real estate for a long, long time. Pretty much your whole career. You started your career in, I believe, in title escrow and progressed into real estate sales and then management, and then you started at Harris Consulting, then you became the CEO of Keller Williams. So you have a very good understanding of real estate. So we're excited to have you on the show. So I think people are really interested in short-term rental properties right now. And can you kind of walk us through like when you started at Harris Consulting, what the kind of background is and what kind of courses you teach in that platform?
Yeah, so I started real estate 25 years ago, and really I started it, I had opened up a nightclub, and my husband and I started doing flips during that time. And we would flip houses. I'd go over there and paint, while I was pregnant, because back then, I don't know, like sniffing paint while I'm pregnant. And so we would flip these houses, and I really liked it, but I never really had this desire to actually sell real estate. I liked running businesses. So anyway, flash forward, like you said, title and escrow and all of those things. I'm still an investor at heart. And I had found a couple places on the Oregon coast that were like 165, super cheap, with an ocean view, and there were these, beautiful location with a 1970s interior that smelled like dirt, right? So I knew that I was going to get the places, and actually the first one was actually just for me, and I didn't even think about Airbnbs back then. So I gutted it, redid it, and I would always have people say things like, "Hey, Leann, can I go to your beach property? Hey, can I go to your beach property?" One day I was laying on the couch and I decided to put it on Airbnb, but I was like that first time real estate agent that takes pictures with their iPhone and puts it on the MLS. You're just like, please don't do that. Well, I did it, and I put pictures on Airbnb, and literally within seconds, like it just lit up and I started getting these bookings. Well, that ping through Airbnb is like crack. Anybody that does short-term rentals will tell you, like the second the money starts coming, you're like, whoa, I just got like $900 for this person to stay at my place for the weekend. And so pretty soon it just kind of becomes this ping. And I started having people ask me, which is my biggest pet peeve, but they say, "Leann, can I pick your brain on how you're doing your short-term rental?" But it was a lot of people because I manage, 1,500 real estate agents in 5 different states. And so I finally was like, I don't have time to let people pick my brain all day. So why don't I write a course? And I reached out to Airbnb. I met with their attorneys. The attorneys signed off on it for me to call it Airbnb and You. And I started teaching people really after I had bought another unit and, other units. And I finally said, I've got to teach people this at a high level. And that's how it kind of took fire.
That's amazing. So, and now I guess a lot of people come to you and they're looking for agents that are savvy in this space right now. It's created a whole industry. There's a group out of Tennessee, and they do the Smoky Mountains, and they have a podcast, and so I think as a real estate, I used to sell houses as well, so I'm a California real estate broker, but I'm seeing like a whole niche being carved out just for real estate investor friendly agents. And like personally, like I got into real estate to be an investor too, and I know I see these agents sometimes, and this kind of gets me, and they've been selling real estate all their life. And then when you talk to them, they own no real estate. They have no retirement. I'm like, so you as the CEO of this company, it's an amazing because you have a great background and you are an investor at heart, right? So if I were to work for a brokerage, I'd want to work for a brokerage that gets it. Like, listen, guys and girls, real estate is a great business. You can make a lot of money, but you also, when you're making money, you need to reinvest that money into your 401k, which our 401ks are little real estate assets throughout the nation. And so I love the fact that that's your background. I love the fact that you were in the nightclub industry. I think that brings a lot of, you're kind of like an unconventional CEO, which, like, if I were to work for anybody, it would be somebody like you, because you're like going to give me, you're going to give me the knowledge. You're like, you've done it, you've been there, and that's fantastic. That's what I think more brokerages need, people like you as to run the ship, because a lot of people they don't get it. There's a lot of things happening in the real estate space right now. There's iBuyers, there's all this stuff going on. So, so the fundamentals of Airbnb, and I'm just curious, kind of like, do you get a lot of agents that want to pick your brain because you have this focus? And do you help educate your agents on, like, hey guys, start looking at this?
I'll tell you, Henderson, actually, because you live in Henderson, super funny. I was invited out to Vegas in 2000, maybe 18, maybe 19. I don't remember exactly. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I came out there and I swear it was like an angry mob, yet they paid to be in the room with me to give them all my content. And when I sell an Airbnb class, I give everything. I do my home books, I give them checklists, I give them all the way from acquisition to implementation to actually running a P&L in your short-term rental so that you're running with profit first. By the way, that's a great book. I just saw that speaker the other day, but profit first is what we're looking for. And then we'll go back and we'll live within the budget that's created out of the profit of this Airbnb. And so I came in and basically I just teach, right? I don't care what the laws are in each city. And it's not because I'm saying to people, hey, I think you should break the law. It's quite honestly, this is like Uber. It comes and then it goes, and then they take away the license and then they give you the license. And then they decide everybody can have short-term rentals. And then they're like, nobody can have short-term rentals. And you're just on this like this like up and down, up and down. And if you are an investor in crypto, it feels almost the same. Or if you remember Uber coming out, it's the same. It's like, look, anything new, and Airbnbs aren't new now, but they are to some cities, you're going to get this jerk around. It just happens. So I come into Henderson and I swear I think I charge like $165 for a class. It's not much. And I'll give you everything. I basically put together, 40 hours worth of work and hand it to people in a packet. So they come to the class and people are just angry and yelling. And they're like, you're telling us to violate the law. I'm like, no, I'm not. Well, by the end of the class, right? So I'm explaining who I am, what I do, and teaching them how to do it. We get to the end and like a couple of people start raising their hand. They're like, well, I'm running like 10 Airbnbs illegally. And people start like telling the truth. So they're saying, in Henderson, we're never going to be able to do this. We're never going to be able to have Airbnbs, whatever. The next day, it gets legalized and Henderson completely opens up. Everybody can have an Airbnb. You can have an Airbnb. You can have an Airbnb. It's like this crazy thing, right? They're like, get Leann back here. So I go back to Henderson again. And then I started teaching in Vegas quite a bit. In fact, I think I was brought back 4 times that year to teach this class. And every single time I had 60 plus real estate agents in it. I had the title companies in it. I had lenders in it. I was just shocked. I was like, I don't know if they're like, hey, I want to invest, or hey, I want to know, what are our laws going to be so that I can be a better agent. Most of the people want to be a better agent to their investors. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't own any short term. I own only long term right now. And when I used to live in the Bay Area, I used to run a large real estate investor club, and I would get courses. So I got this Airbnb course. And I never went through it. And I gave the password and passcode to my buddy. And literally over the last 14 months, he's gotten 5 Airbnbs. He nets like 25 grand a month net.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I am missing the boat. Like, okay, why am I buying these properties in the middle of nowhere that cash flow a lot? But but I could just buy one good, larger kind of luxury property and I could net 5 or 6 grand from that house per month, if you do it right. And it's just, it's truly amazing. And
I'll tell you what the caveat is though. You're saying that, but I'll tell you what the caveat is. It's like having a pool. Well, at least in the Northwest, right? You want a pool, it sounds pretty, it's kind of fun, but you got to go clean it out all the time because we have leaves. You got to go maintenance, you got to go do all this stuff. A lot of people want to have a dirt backyard, like what you're saying, and the backyard might grow some stuff organically and it's really cool. And I show up and I enjoy my backyard in the summer. You don't have to do anything. That's what a long-term rental is. Short-term is the pool. It's sexy and it makes a lot of money, but it's maintenance and it's work.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to do that part of it.
But you can build systems. Like he found
I do. Yeah.
he found a virtual assistant that,
Yeah.
co-hosts and has a lot of experience, and took the headache of him having to interact with the,
Totally.
the people that are staying. So there's systems. And does your course dive into that kind of component too?
Yes, I have not been, so I have always used virtual assistants. I love them. I use them in my business. They run my social media. There's a lot of things that my virtual assistant does. He's been with me, the one that I currently has been with me for 4 years, and I love him. The problem is that when virtual assistants have templates and they are very templated, but humans are not super templated. So you might have a person that's coming in from Switzerland to your Airbnb, which I get a lot of. For some reason, Europeans visit my place on the Oregon coast quite a bit. So I have somebody from Switzerland, and the type of questions that they ask are just not something that my VA can answer. So I have a local co-host, but I've also, for her, I teach people how to hire great hires. I've not been down to my Airbnbs. She does run everything for me. And she makes sure that the templated things can get templated, but that she's monitoring constantly to answer. So I don't want to be the person that monitors constantly with my VA. Sure, I can do some templated, but yeah, I talk about VAs and I talk about how it's worked for some people. And then I talk about my hires. And she's been with me for 5 years now, and I taught her how to run a business. So now she runs a whole vacation rental business down at the coast.
Yeah, that's awesome. So most of your properties are in Oregon then?
No, I have some in Palm Springs and Portland.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested, obviously, because I'm here in Henderson is one of my markets to look for short-term
Yes.
rentals. They do have you have to take a class and get certified, then you can, and then there's certain rules about how far your house is from other houses, and obviously HOAs and different kind of stuff. So
Right.
definitely interested in purchasing an Airbnb type of property. I think I'll do Henderson in Vegas has done fairly well. I think that obviously this is a very touristy destination. Plus, we're getting so many people moving here that they need places for a month or as their houses are being built or things like that. And then there's also the midterm rentals, right? The traveling nurses of the world, or any. Do you mostly just focus short term and not midterm, or do you do any midterm?
I do midterm actually. So at my coastal properties. So the reason why I'm not bringing up Palm Springs is because that is a whole other animal and it's very interestingly regulated. But the Oregon coast, that's an easy one. Is it's a very small town. And they'll just pull licenses like that. And they're like, nah, nobody can have a license. And this did happen. And they gave 5 days for everybody to come into town hall and vote on it. It got voted down, no short-term rentals. Well, I had to pivot pretty quickly. And I also teach people in my class, like, please pivot, know your 4 options that you can do. And so I immediately went into traveling nurses. That luckily wasn't during, almost right before COVID, and then COVID hit. So I do, 3 to 5 month rentals, and it's there for a little bit of an inflated cost. But the cool thing is you have a steady renter during that time. And yeah, so I do both. And I also, I sell that to people that are doing bridge loans, right? They might be selling one house and getting another or whatever, and they don't know when their next house is going to be finished. In Henderson, what I love about that and what I've shared with people in that area, and it is always look for the draw, right? So I went horseback riding in the Red Rocks. I can't even tell you, I did this like whole cowboy experience where you go out and you like cook on the fire, and I'm in the Red Rocks riding my horse around. And I don't think that people understand how close it is. It's like Henderson, and then you can go out into this beautiful area. And so people also aren't tapping into the resources of getting your clients into that place. And people want to go for a month and go work now because they're working virtually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. And it is truly amazing. I started looking in Pennsylvania in the Poconos, which is another market where,
Right.
you're skiing and all this stuff. It's kind of because if you do build the systems and have the right team and the right co-host, you can do this anywhere. And then you're running your numbers kind of similar to running like a long-term rental, except you're gonna have maintenance, you're gonna have your turnover, you're gonna have all of those. So do you have like a little pro forma that you give with your course that we can plug in our numbers and go, okay, here's what our expected net is. Obviously, there's tools like AirDNA. What tools do you like right now that you use? Like, do you use AirDNA or the world and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I really do like AirDNA. I think that they're one of the smartest, but I also think that intellectually, if you know your market, so a couple different things. Like one, I know my markets, I know what's coming, I know what my seasonalities are, I know what my seasonal functions are going to be. So let's go to Palm Springs for a second. I know when Coachella is coming, I know when Stagecoach is coming. Airbnb does not know that on their platform. So if I'm teaching somebody how to do a pro forma, but you're only going off of what Airbnb says you should rent your place for, let's call it 200 for easy math, 200 a night. Well, in season of Coachella and of Stagecoach, you can get upwards to, let's say, a $200 condo property, $1,500 a night. And so what a lot of people don't understand is you have to know your market better than Airbnb does. And even though AirDNA might have a lot of stats, you know it better than anybody else. And I'll say this because real estate agents don't do their due diligence, right? So when I'm looking at helping or coaching and helping a real estate agent, I'll ask things like, well, how many kids live in the neighborhood? And they're like, well, how would I know that? I'm like, why don't you go to Google Earth and look in everybody's backyard and figure out who has toys and swings sitting there? Right? Like, honestly, this is a thing, right? Like, satellites are just taking pictures of everything that we're doing now. And so I think, honestly, sometimes we just don't know our market. So for me, I walk the market, I get to know the people, I know the hotels in the area, and maybe I'm spending a little bit of time there before I do my first investment. Right now, I'm going to be investing in the Midwest. Same thing. I'm going out there, I'm hanging out with my friends out there. I've got a crew that I want to know where the great pizza places are. So you have a different knowledge than AirDNA or Airbnb has, and use that knowledge. So I'm probably one of the higher priced places in my condo units on the Oregon coast. And guess who has the highest occupancy rates?
You.
Right? So I'm not only making the most amount of money, and I know that I have the highest occupancy rates because I don't need a mathematician to tell me that. My house cleaner tells me. She's like, yeah, yours is booked all the time. Nobody else has booked this much. Like, count the days and tell me. Let me see what else is on everybody else's calendar. So
Why the Midwest? Just because you feel like you're going to get a huge return, like the price point versus what you can get the gross revenues?
Diversity. Nope, just diversity. So I want my portfolio to be extremely diverse whenever, as an investor. And I don't just, I have a lot of friends that are just in crypto or just on the stock market or just in real estate, right? So I'm very diverse. I'm in the stock market, I'm in crypto. I obviously, savings don't pay us anything anymore. So I don't try to keep very much money in savings. But houses are anywhere from, right now, I have a house that I bought for 160 and a house for 1.3, right? So I'm all over the board with my houses. Quite frankly, my houses that I bought at 450 are at 650 now, and that was only a year and a half ago. So I've got this great equity going, but I don't know if that's going to last. I really don't. And so for me, what I don't have is low income housing, and I'm going to go into low income housing. So that's why the Midwest is coming.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's kind of like I really want to do it. I haven't done it yet, but I want to buy short term. But I was just thinking, God, I love affordable housing because it's like, so I started buying property in Pennsylvania recently, and I seem to really like it there. Like, I don't know, I just bought a duplex for 106,000. I'm going to get $1,900 in gross rent, 106 acquisition. I mean, it's old housing stock, but as long as you know what you're getting into, mechanicals, roof, and I could just rinse and repeat that. I'm buying a fourplex right now in Pennsylvania too, and that's
great.
I'm getting it for like pretty much for 90 grand. You can't even rebuild it. It's going to take you. So
that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, there's lots of opportunity, and then it's just building the teams in those markets, and that's critical too. And that's why and I kind of went back old school because I had kind of focused on my lending business, but I'm like, I need cash flow. I need reoccurring revenue. I don't need to do more transactional based. And I think like that's when I was going back to when you said in the beginning that these agents, there's some great agents out there, they're netting 500, 800 grand a year. They're doing fairly well. Right. But what tax benefits do they have? And like, I think the evolution of the agent would be the agent that can help people like get into their first house and the key principles of house hacking. If you listen to David Green at Bigger
Yeah.
Pockets, right?
Yeah.
And so he's a
I
big.
tell everybody that people are like, should I buy an Airbnb first so that I get a business going, or should I buy my own house? And I'm like, your own house. Like, let's hack your first house, right? That's what I did as a single mom. And I'll tell you, Airbnb is another reason why I started this. Is I was a single mom. I had 3 kids. I have my kids growing up, and I'm making $90,000 passive a year on just 2 of my rentals, 2 of my Airbnbs, right? Just because I know the market, I went down there, I got to know them. I'm like, no, that's another business for me. So I think that that's the thing too, is like, yeah, you got to hack that first property.
And also too, I had a real estate CPA, and we were talking about, because if you're considered a real estate professional, you get a lot more taxes, right?
Yeah.
And then we did a segment with Thomas Castelli. He's a real estate CPA, and we talked about the benefits of running an Airbnb business with your real estate, that potentially, if you materially participate, you can do a cost segregation, you can accelerate the depreciation. Even if you're a W-2 wage earner, you could potentially offset your earned income. It's
Yes.
like amazing. So this is what the education platform that's why I do this show, is because I want to get people like you. I want to get these tax people, because if you don't do this now, like I look at myself right now, I'm 44, and I'm like, okay, the fear in my mind is I wake up single, alone at 65, 70 years old, and I'm working, no offense to anybody that works at Walmart, working at Walmart as a clerk, making minimum wage, right? Like, and so what can I do today to get reoccurring revenue and limit my tax liabilities?
Right.
And you can do that through the power of real estate. And yes, we've seen just a tremendous run. And I'm a little nervous, to be honest with you, because I experienced 2007. I didn't know a lot in 2007, and it was a very bad time, but I'm resilient. And what you learn is that no matter if your rentals go down, as long as you stress test your occupancy levels, your long-term rental rates, and the thing cash flows and debt service is itself, even if it drops a little bit, you're still going to be okay. You just got to ride the storm. And when there's storms, that's another good time to start acquiring. So if you have a little bit of capital somewhere you can plug in, and then.
Well, I think storms are opportunity, quite frankly. So like when Airbnb absolutely tanked down at the coast and everybody tweaked out, everybody was vacant except for me. And the reason why I wasn't vacant is because I had already gotten to know all of the Oregon State University scientists that were coming down to investigate our ocean. So I knew all of them. I started advertising in their platform. I knew all the fishermen that go out and only come in for 6 months. Great. What fishermen? I knew about the healthcare in that area, and I knew the industry. And so let's say, for example, Chicago's where I'm looking right now. You can bet that I'm not going to go in and buy the apartment building that I just got yesterday from one of the wholesalers, right? I'm not going to just go buy that without knowing my 4 outs that I'm going to have. Okay, it's fine that I want to do government housing right now, but then what? What happens? Could I turn them into an Airbnb? What's the industry around there? Who could I sell it to? Not, rent it to. If like I had a factory close by, or if I had an Amazon close by, could I convert these into, great little apartments that Amazon workers can work in, or whatever? But if you're not prepared to pivot, you're going to get eaten up by 2007 or what's about ready to come, because it's coming.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I think we just got to all, be prepared. And I'm always learning, right? You're always educating yourself. And like now I'm like seeking out a mentor in the Section 8 space that understands Section 8, because I want to learn that.
Yeah.
And take action. And I know that if I go buy let's say a 5-bedroom property in Pennsylvania, they have certain code requirements from the local bureaus or townships there that they come and do an inspection, and they're going to nail you. They want it done certain ways, that you got to keep these places. And then you have the voucher programs. But if you can understand that, and you're getting paid per bedroom, and then you're going to have like 4x the amount of long-term rentals if you offer Section 8 type of housing. And so then you can screen the best of the best candidates there, and you're getting 90 or whatever percentage ACH into your account every month. And typically, if you really understand it, the people that have the vouchers, they don't want to lose the vouchers, because it's like free housing, or at least, a good portion of it's covered.
I think they paid like 80% or something close to that. So, they're coming up with 1,000, or the government's bringing in 800, and your person has to bring in 200 or something like that. And it's not, they don't want to lose that voucher for sure.
Yeah, I think we need to do a big online conference with all like these topics, like Airbnb. Then you get the tax people, then you get somebody that knows Section 8. I think this is what people really need to kind of tune into, because I feel really bad for people, because I look at myself and then I say, God, like when I used to live in California in the Bay Area, I feel bad for the people that are making $60,000 or $70,000 a year W-2. You live in the Bay Area. Your medium housing price is $750 now, or whatever that number is, close to it. It's like, how do they actually afford to live? They can't. And people need to be plugging into these things, because you can also learn Airbnb arbitrage, right? You can learn, and everybody who's listening, that's where you master lease or lease the property, and then they allow you to run your Airbnb business. And that's a different model. But
there's a guy out of Dallas that does that, and he's got like 120 listings now. And what he does, he just literally drives around with a truck, and he just stages his places. And if somebody says, hey, we're not going to lease to you anymore, we don't want to do short-term rental, he's like, I don't care. He just takes his furniture and moves to the next place. And so he's got a whole furniture moving company, storage units, and this is what he does. And I think he's making over $1 million a year on what he's doing. I mean, it's insane money. And he's got a movie business technically, But I think that it's smart idea.
Yeah. And even
there's something I was going to say about low income housing. And a lot of people have really criticized low income housing. And I got to tell you, like, I grew up in low income housing. My mom was on welfare the whole time I was growing up. And if you want to change the world, start educating the people that are living in your units. That's what I plan on doing. I'm going to have a first time home buyers class. How do we get you to that? How do we teach you how to be a better, to be, get a better job? How do we get you more educated? What is it that you want to teach people? How do you want to see the world change? Like, that's another way that you can do it. I'm not saying that everybody's like that, but I think that people criticize before they're like, yeah, I want to put in the work and help people. And for me, I'm probably going to be helping people as I go through.
You're listening to the Investor Financing Podcast. We'll be right back after this break.
Hi, this is Beau Eckstein, host of the Investor Financing Podcast. I appreciate you checking out our channel. On this podcast, we talk about real estate, investing, financing, business lending, and acquiring and expanding your business. I'm sure you will find some videos here that will help you build your business empire. There's a lot to see. Take your time and make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Thanks again. You're really like the new age CEO of a real estate brokerage. To be honest with you, like when I hear you talk, I'm like, this is like the new age of where people need to achieve to be a CEO of a real estate brokerage. Because in the olden days, you'd have the gray hair old guy, and he was he's been doing deals for like 100 years. But listen, things change so rapidly. You need somebody that's like understands what's going on in the world, and like talks about Airbnb and talks about house hacking. And a lot of the older generation, no offense to them, they kind of turned off their learning caps. And that's the one beautiful thing about what I found in the real estate world. You're always learning.
Yeah, I think too, like even the kind of old school broker owners or whatever that you're hearing out there, they don't want to talk about what's going on with crypto. And I got to tell you, it is coming, folks. People are buying houses with crypto, and they're not even paying attention to what that arena is. And it's like, oh, that's not going to last, or that's not going to be this. I'm like, well, you're the person that was telling me that Zillow wasn't going to be a thing too. And then I had to deal with that beast, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're the one that told me that Redfin wasn't going to be a thing. Well, I had to deal with that beast, And so I think that I don't really listen to people anymore. I look at new trends that are coming out, and I investigate them, and I try them out myself. And if it seems to work, then I start an education platform for the agents.
Yeah, that's great. And to be honest with you, I need to get educated on crypto. It's one of those things everybody's
Yeah.
talking about it, and I'm like, I just need to
Well, just skip crypto and go to NFTs because that's
yeah,
the new thing. So just
yeah,
forget crypto, just go straight to NFTs.
yeah. I hear Gary Vaynerchuk talking about NFTs. So yeah, I think it's important. We got to know what's going on. Like
Yeah.
that's where it's really the book Who Not How, and that's like a new book. If you haven't read it, it's really good. It's so true. You got to find that who and not the how, and then
That's what
like
Gary Keller says that all the time.
yeah, I mean, it's just that's the kind of the end all be all for me. That's like there's two books that every year I started this new thing. Every year I'm gonna kind of base my year on like two books. So this year it's Who Not How, and then Never Eat Alone, which is an older book, but it's
Wait,
updated.
what's the other book?
Never Eat Alone by Kevin.
Oh yeah.
Pursuit.
I love that.
And then yeah, so those are like my kind of two focal points. Like, and then really study. I listen to a lot of audio, but now I want to say, like, instead of listening to so many books, let's like deep dive on each book that you resonate with, and then kind of like take the notes, like, and kind of implement. I think that's like pretty important as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. I mean, you have such a vast knowledge on real estate, which is cool. I guess that's kind of it's helped you recruit agents, because I think people feel they want to work with somebody they enjoy.
Yeah,
Like
I don't recruit very much anymore outwardly. I do get calls in and from campaigns or knowledge. And I think that that's the other thing is a lot of real estate companies out there are still trying so hard to build their real estate company, but you can get calls that come into you when you just are expanding your own self. And I think that a lot of people, yeah, that's what they should be doing. Of course, I do have recruiters inside my companies, and we want them to be making outbound calls because people don't know what they don't know, but do elevate yourself and people just get drawn to it.
So what are your goals going forward? It sounds like you've accomplished a lot and you're still very young. And so what's your plan for the future?
Well, I love to tell people how old I am. So I'm 51 next month. So now I'm in my middle age.
You look young. You look very young though. So that power to you. So whatever you're doing.
Yeah, it's my attitude, I'm pretty sure. I mean, so first of all, I think that my goals, this shirt that I'm wearing today, it's not me, it's you. I did not wear it for this podcast. I actually wore it for my last meeting. However, accountability and knowing that you're the cause of everything that happens in your life is a huge thing, right? And that's just kind of my mantra. Like, whatever is happening to you is your fault or your blessing because you made it happen. And I love I don't know if you've seen that meme where Snoop Dogg is like up and he's going to take an award and he goes, I'd like to thank myself. Like, that's how I feel a lot of times. Like, no, nobody did any of this for me. My parents didn't hand me a check. Nobody said, Leann, we're going to give you your first house to start off, right? I didn't have that. I've been a single mom. I've pretty much gone the world myself, by myself. I've never had anybody else paying my way. Like, this is your responsibility to blaze your own trail. So my goals, again, continue investing right now. Like I said, I'm going to get into some housing, probably multiplexes in the Midwest. I'm looking in 2 different locations right now. So that's a huge thing for me. I have a nonprofit called Lifeline for Hope, and we recently got a big donation from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And my hope is to have that as my retirement. I don't know when and if I'll ever retire, but I do want to make sure that I'm always changing the world through helping people with mental health issues. And so I'm always pouring back into my nonprofit. And yeah, I mean, I like helping people. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, this was very inspirational, and I love doing my show because it's kind of a selfish thing because I get to interview really cool people and ask them questions and just like, how'd you do it? Right. And like over time, that just it ingrains in you, right? You're like, okay, like, yeah. And I always get, a couple nuggets. I have to say I got a lot of nuggets out of this call. Or Zoom or whatever you want to call it. It's been really fun. Where can people find out about your Airbnb course if they're interested?
So Airbnb and ANDU, just the letter u.com, just go straight to airbnbandu.com. And they can sign up for a really terrible online course, not terrible content, terrible visual. It's like me down in the corner with like a slide. But honestly, it's like, I don't know, it's like $150 or something. And what we do is we monitor every person that signs up for our Airbnb and U class. And we actually hand them all of the content that they need to get started. And we'll do like you said, the pro forma, we get them their home books, we do all of the kind of hard work for them behind the scenes. Yeah, my nonprofit is lifelineforhope.com. If you care about mental health, I'd love donations in that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. No, I mean, everybody's probably, I know I was dealing with some mental health during COVID, and I can only imagine people with real mental health issues. And we have a really bad homeless population in downtown Las Vegas. And sometimes I'll drive by and I just like kind of look, and oftentimes I kind of try not to let them see me, because it's like, you know, like you might get asked for money, and then like, but if you really kind of get to the root of everything, a lot of people have mental health issues on the streets, and a lot of people that you would never expect have mental health issues. I've personally known 2 people I would have never guessed had, you know, from the outside, they have great lives. 2 of them, 2 of them killed themselves, that I know, that I would say that were friends of mine over the last 10 years. And so mental health is a huge problem that we don't look at. And even people that you think have a perfect life, they make money, they do all this stuff, there's a lot of health issues. So that's a great foundation you have.
Well, it's so true. And honestly, that is a lot of times why people are dying by suicide, is just because of life triggers. And so we sit here and we talk about, you know, investing in real estate. We're doing all the things, right? But a person that can't get out of bed, can't go to work to be able to invest in real estate, right? And so what ends up happening is their bills are piling up on them and they don't know how to get out of it. And that's a lot of times how people die by suicide. Well, it's super important to understand that there is a resource out there, like my organization, that will just pay their rent to help them get into services, to get them the medication that they need so that they can get to the next level of becoming investors or having a great life or being great parents or whatever it takes. So that's what we do, is we really do reduce down the life triggers and really focus on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, food, clothing, shelter, sense of community, and getting people into that stuff.
Yeah, I know financial stress is one of the biggest, I mean,
So big.
for divorce. And, you know, I've been put in situations where, you know, I had you know, big deals that were just eating me alive. And that wasn't, at the end of the day, to me, that was like, oh, I can't even breathe. And I'm like, just put yourself in somebody else's shoes that has it 10 times worse than you. And so I get it, because I take things, I personalize things so internally that like I understand now, like, because I have a pretty darn good life and I have people I can talk to. If I didn't have people, if I didn't have my mom, who is a great resource to like run things by, and everybody needs somebody to talk to, bottom line, and that would solve so many problems. So hats off to you for doing such a great thing for the world. I love people that do good for the world. It's just like, why can't there be more people? Hopefully this resonates with people out there. Like, yeah, we love business, we love making money, but you know, at the end of the day, people are still good. Because we see the media, we see the news, it's so negative, and you know, we have people killing each other in war right now.
No.
COVID, we have inflation. The thing that gets me, and I, you know, sometimes catch myself doing this, is like, you see people complaining about like gas being $1 more. But guys, just stop and look at people in Ukraine that are getting killed. Like, it's at the end of the day, like, you paying $1 more, it costs you $8 more, versus like these families being torn apart. And we're in our little bubbles, and we don't stop and like really look and like understand, like, we should be more compassionate people. Even with that, like pets, I'm super compassionate about. Like
Me too.
like, I don't know, like if you don't like dogs and you're
a weirdo.
Yeah, like I can understand not cats, but dogs, you got a problem with me.
All the cat lovers are going to really hate on your podcast.
Yeah, well, this has been amazing. I'm glad we got to meet. I hope you, like, if you come out here to Henderson or Las Vegas, let me know. I'd love to come to one of your workshops. Sure. And yeah, I mean, it would be great to meet you in person as well. And thanks so much for your time, and I appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you on the next episode.